So hello, thank you so much for everyone for coming. It's been amazing seeing everyone. So I suppose we just want to introduce ourselves. So will we start off with Keith?
Yeah, so my name is Keith Russell. I'm the creator and founder of a podcast called The Endless Spiral, which is a mental health podcast. Started about a year and a half ago, and I've been quite open about sharing my own journey and my own story with mental health, which is like we have a bit of depression, a bit of an eating disorder, a bit of body dysmorphia. But yeah, so I'm delighted to be here today, and thanks very much for inviting me.
Darragh?
Yeah, hi guys, my name's Darragh. I run a mental health blog called Thoughts Too Big, and I'm also a writer. Kind of focuses on daily mental health struggles. So myself, I've struggled with depression and anxiety in my early 20s, and the blog is dedicated to dealing with those on a daily basis and just discovering easy and simple ways to figure out your own emotions as you go through life, I suppose. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Darragh. Thank you. Lizzy?
Hi, I'm Lizzy Shortall. I'm delighted to be here. I'm an author and I'm a mindfulness for wellbeing teacher for children and adults because I was struggling with anxiety and I turned to mindfulness as a coping tool. That's what I do. I teach that to children and adults, and I have an adult's book and a kid's book as well.
Thank you, Lizzy.
I've kind of been nominated as a bit of a moderator here, but before we kick things off, obviously want to welcome everyone to this fabulous venue, but I want to give Emma a special mention for pulling all this together in a very short space of time. I think she's done an absolutely incredible job, so I just want to give her a round of applause. Say thanks very much. It's absolutely incredible.
Absolutely.
So obviously before we kick things off, we have a screen with there's a hashtag called Change with Emma. So if you're sharing anything on social media today, that would really appreciate it if you could all use that hashtag, because it just helps the conversation and it raises awareness even more. So there's a few topics that we're going to cover today, and we're going to try and keep it as general as possible. We kind of want to mention maybe like our coping strategies, kind of daily struggles, our recovery process. We'll kind of dip in and out of our own personal stories as well. And maybe if one of you want to start, I'm going to nominate Darragh because you nominated me for this.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to nominate Darragh at the start. So maybe we'll start off with kind of how you might deal with kind of anxiety on a day to day, because obviously some days are more difficult than others. Like say, because I know you're very keen about drinking a lot of water.
Absolutely. One of the many things.
Yeah. So like, what kind of tools would you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, and it's a good question because I think before I kind of knew what anxiety was, I was feeling it and I didn't know what it was. So I still have friends like this to this day who they'll describe anxiety to me and they won't know it's anxiety. They'll be like, oh, I'm feeling like this, and I keep having the same thoughts over and over, and I keep thinking people don't like me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's anxiety. And it's just because we've had no formal education in mental health that people don't know what it is. So for a long time I was like, why do I feel so bad? And I didn't realize it was anxiety. So once I got to that point and I went to therapy to get to that point, I kind of started developing a routine of when anxious thoughts come in or I'm having anxious moments that I can fall back on this routine. And that kind of, they're just things that I know for me personally make me feel better. And they're, as you said, drinking water, staying hydrated. Exercise is really, really key for me. Like if I'm having a really anxious morning and I go for a walk or a run, that kind of lessens the impact of the anxiety. And then we have like meditation's really, really key for me. Writing, so the reason I started the blog to begin with is because I was dealing with a lot of different mental health problems, and a way for me to relieve and take the pressure off was to write it out. And that's why journaling has been a really, really important thing for me, because if you think about like anxiety, it's this big vague emotion in your head and it's like a cloud hanging over you. But if you're able to write down exactly what it is that you're thinking, it goes from being this vague thing to this very like succinct paragraph. And it's like, okay, these are the key concerns or the things that are worrying me or the things that make me anxious. And it's gone from being an unbelievably huge thing to a very small thing, and I can deal with that.
Yeah.
So that I think that's why writing has been like the key to my like mental health recovery and mental health, like dealing with mental health problems, is because it allows me to quantify what's going on, and that makes things a bit easier. You know?
So would you be more aware of your triggers now than in the past?
Absolutely. I think, and especially during the pandemic, I noticed I was spending way more time on social media, and then I was like having way more anxious days. And then it was before the pandemic, I wouldn't have linked those two. And now it became very obvious that the more time I spend on social media, the more anxious I'm getting. And that's just one of many triggers, but that was a huge one for me. So the thing I had to do there was be proactive, and I deleted Twitter off my phone, I deleted Instagram off my phone, and I only used it when I needed to rather than when I was bored. Because like during the pandemic and lockdown, it was like, oh, there's nothing to do, I'll just go on Twitter all day. Yeah. And that was really, really causing me to become anxious, comparing myself to other people, all that kind of awful stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. What about you, Lizzy?
What about me? So how do I kind of deal with anxiety on a daily basis?
Yeah.
There would be some overlaps with some of the things Darragh has said there. For me, my story is a little bit different. With my anxiety, I went down the route of addiction. And fortunately, I'm out the other side now, nearly a decade. But I have to be careful on a daily basis to manage my stress and manage my anxiety, to make sure I don't ever end up back down that road, you know. So I'm big into mindfulness, as I mentioned. And for me, it's not so much the formal practice of meditation, it's more being in the moment. So engaging the five senses. So I would have shared with you guys this week, I had a lot of anxiety. My mother was taken into hospital and she was very sick. And I just felt my anxiety going up for the first time in a while. So I literally just, when it came, I acknowledged it, and then I brought myself back into the moment by being mindful and engaging the five senses. So it's very, very simple, and I teach it to children in schools, and it's basically, what do I see, what do I hear, what do I taste, what do I smell, and what do I feel? And if you do that, you're back in the moment. So that'd be one of the kind of mindfulness tools. I would do my breathing, and then if I wasn't in an actual heightened state of anxiety, more as a prevention, I would also do a lot of writing, journaling, my walks, and gratitude is a daily practice for me since the lockdown. I have a kid's book, and in it there's a character called Geraldine the Grumpy Giraffe, and she learns about gratitude. And I knew that I would be that grumpy giraffe during the lockdown if I wasn't doing my gratitude, you know. So every day I try and sit down. I'm actually in a Facebook group, and we share what we're grateful that day every night. And it's just really nice because it helps me to focus on the positive. Doesn't mean I don't acknowledge the tough stuff, but it keeps it in perspective.
Yeah.
So the mindfulness and the gratitude for me would be the two big things.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll dip in now because I'm going to leave you to last, Emma, because I want to give you the stage. Obviously, this day is all about you. Yeah. So we'll let you have the floor now in a second. But for me, I mean, anxiety has been kind of a big part of my life for quite a long time. And I've really only in the last year been able to kind of get a good handle on it. And I think what works best for me now is I kind of break things into smaller jobs now rather than I let things get up. Like I don't let things get overwhelming. And then one massive thing that has helped me is I actually embrace it. So if I'm having a bad day, I'll actually just embrace the day. Yeah. I'll just say to myself, right, I'm having a bad day, that's fine. And tomorrow's a new day. Where before you would let that get on top of you and the negative thoughts in your head will just spiral and spiral and spiral. And then the day just gets worse. And then you're physically and mentally exhausted. And eventually you're nearly in bed for 2 days after it. Yeah. I would like yourself and me were only speaking about this kind of earlier on. And now that I actually will embrace a bad day, it actually gives me more energy because you actually have at least a thought process laid out now saying, you know, I'll break the day into little jobs or little parts. Yeah. And when you actually do that, it's just like actually gives you more energy.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? What about you?
Definitely, yeah. And I think learning these coping strategies from when you're a kid, you know, it can really prevent from problems escalating into adulthood and then becoming, you know, a real problem, which unfortunately then has to be dealt with, you know. And I think as well for me today, you know, going through this whole process, it's much bigger than just me. And I think I really just want to break some stigma for people because we're all here today. We all look different. We all dress differently. We present ourselves differently. But I think mental health is something that's really just, it's inside, so we can never see it on each other, you know? So I think it's always important just to remind ourselves that we all have physical health and mental health, and just to look out for each other's physical health and mental health, and kind of break down some of those walls and just be open to talking. I think it's been so hidden for so many years that, you know, maybe anxiety has been talked about a little bit, but things like OCD, intrusive thoughts aren't really talked about so much, and can be quite scary for people who are going through it and don't know that there's a community around. But just meeting people like these wonderful people here on the panel, there are so many people going through these things that we just need to create a community, and I think break that stigma and know that literally, like, no one is alone, you know? So going public with my story has kind of empowered me and helped me a lot in that way, knowing that I have this community of people, and we can maybe not change the whole process of the mental health system, but create little communities where we can help each other, and eventually, hopefully, we can try and strive to change the mental health system in Ireland and have some impact on the care that we're giving to our young people and our older people and everyone in between, because I think we all deserve a certain level of care. And yeah, because we're all human and we're all deserving of happiness and kindness. And I think everyone here today, you know, has been through something in their lives that needed help with, and we can all resonate with that. But definitely just, you know, kind of learning how to cope with those skills and reaching out when
100%,
when we're not in a place to deal with it ourselves. Yeah.
I think it's a really important point there that you said. We all have a mental health. You know, there is a difference between mental health and mental illness. So we all have our physical health, and mental health isn't something that's out there. We all have one. And some days it's good and some days it's not great. And some days we're vulnerable and we need to just get through the day, like Keith said, or do what we need to do to feel better tomorrow. Yes. You know, energy in the bank or wellness in the bank for the next day. And like you say there, sometimes when it isn't addressed, it can lead to bigger things.
Exactly.
You know, I would have had anxiety as a child and had no idea that's what anxiety was. Had that knot in my stomach and just thought everybody felt like that. Yeah. And the more people I say that to who have struggled with anxiety say the same.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. I can even recognize for myself, even as a kid, I think I dealt with OCD quite a lot, and I just didn't know what that was, you know? And I think being able to be aware of these things and notice them in young people and just catch it, you know, and it is something that can be dealt with and just sat down and talked about, and just really kind of being open about it. And there's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just the same as having a broken leg or something like that, but unfortunately it's treated in the health system in a different way, which I am trying to make some changes in. Hopefully I can in the future as well, be an advocate for that, but yeah, I think just being open and being honest, really.
Yeah, because conversations like this and what you've done so far on your own journey to get your self-help is you've made people know, and you told me this on Monday, that people have been reaching out to you being like, I've actually been going through stuff and they've never been able to talk about it. So when you talk about it yourself, you're letting people know it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to talk about it with you. And if the more people who do that, it's a ripple effect, and all of a sudden you have nearly everyone talking about it, because everyone's going to struggle with their mental health at some point, whether it's a mental illness or whether it's like I get anxious sometimes, because like research came out during the week where 42% of adults in Ireland have a diagnosed mental health disorder, and that's the ones who've come forward with it. So some people have undiagnosed mental health disorders, which means a lot of us deal with this stuff. And the other research that came out during the week is that the public mental health services is shocking, which isn't surprising to anyone, but now there's actual research to back that up. So it shouldn't be this way, but it is on us as a society and as a community to help each other along. And the best way and the most effective way to do that is to let people know they can have these conversations, because whereas I don't struggle with OCD and I don't know the experience, I can have the conversation. I can be, and like, we can listen, and like, I think when I was struggling, I didn't want someone to come and tell me it was going to be okay and give me a fix. I just wanted someone to hear me, and someone to just, there's someone actually listening to that. There's something wrong. Yeah. And I think that can really help sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and I think the more we speak about it and the more we bring up that there are these problems in our society and in our government, that we need to just keep at it and keep these people aware that, you know, changes need to be made for us to have a quality system, and that might take a while, but you know, it's important to keep at it, because for the future generations, just for me going through this whole process, I wouldn't want anyone to go through this or have to have an event to raise awareness about this. Like, people shouldn't have to do this to get help, you know.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately it has come to this. But in a way, I wouldn't take back these experiences that I've had, because it's brought me to Keith, Darragh and Lizzy and so many other people. And it's just been amazing. And I know there's hundreds of other people out there like this. So, you know, I have ambitious plans to start petitions and get into government and change things, which hopefully when I'm better, I can strive to do that, you know. Yeah, just because people shouldn't have to go through this, and for our future generations, they deserve more, I think, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mentioned to you guys there during the week, I worked in the mental health services as a social worker, and so many people can't advocate for themselves, you know, and you're a voice today among your own struggles for those people, you know, and you're creating more awareness that so many people do need an advocate, and so many people with mental health struggles, they need their family involved and supporting them. And like Darragh said, not telling them what to do, listening to what they need.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that I've learned, that going to some appointments in the mental health service, thinking for so many years that I'm kind of, and I've gotten this advice recently, I thought I was a lesser person than these professionals. So I would let them upset me or be frustrated by them. But realizing recently that actually we're all just people, and they might have a degree or have a title, but I'm actually the one going through it. So I need to advocate for myself and tell them this is what I need. If they can't provide that, then I need to do this myself, you know? And I think the most vulnerable people in our society need those advocates for them, because there's people going into appointments being talked down to, being disrespected, and that need to learn that actually I can have a voice and I can disagree with people, you know, which I never thought was an option. So I think, just having that power in yourself that actually, I can disagree, I can be an advocate, and I can break down and find another path to getting what I need, you know. Yeah.
So you mentioned breaking the wall, and I think you've all kind of, and myself have kind of touched on kind of stigma. So I kind of maybe want to chat about stigma for a while, because obviously just looking around the room, we've got kind of a wide variety of ages and families and stuff. And especially we've got 2 males and 2 females on the panel here, so I think it'd be quite good maybe to give people a bit of an insight into stigma, because not only can you self-stigmatise, you can feel stigma from like kind of outside sources as well. I know I say, like, I mean, yourself and me, we're chatting earlier on, and like, we've lived with body dysmorphia for a long time, which isn't really a wide known kind of anxiety disorder. So like even for me, for being like a man coming out and speaking about that, not only did I self-stigmatize, I felt stigma for that as well, you know, being my age and all that type of stuff. And I was just wondering, well, we start with you, Emma, because obviously we spoke about this earlier on, so I think that'd be quite relevant as well. Because not only were you kind of talking to me about body dysmorphia, like, so I can give the male perspective on it, but what about you from a female perspective of that?
Well, yeah, I think it's something that's really not talked about at all. So like body dysmorphia, for me, was something for years that I didn't tell anyone, that I couldn't really, I couldn't imagine how people could look in a mirror and see themselves. Like, that was a crazy thought for me. I always felt that I was kind of born into the wrong body, and I never thought that was a normal thing until I was talking to Keith, and he was like, oh my God, I've had the same experience as you. And not in a way that, you know, it's, I don't kind of like myself, but it's just something in my brain just doesn't recognize my own image and my own body as myself. And these things really aren't talked about, and they're very kind of kept under a certain level of conversation, I think. But it's so interesting hearing it from a female's perspective and a male's perspective, that so many people go through this, you know. And like, how was that experience for you as a man, kind of saying, yeah, this is something I struggle with?
Yeah. Well, maybe we should probably explain, if anyone's not familiar, the term body dysmorphia, because I had never heard this term about a year ago. It's known as body dysmorphic disorder. So it's closely linked with eating disorder, but it's mainly a mental health condition. It's actually an anxiety disorder, and it's when you're constantly worrying about your appearance and your flaws that you feel you have, but they're not necessarily visible to other people. So that's when you can get very anxious, maybe going out in public, or you're constantly thinking people are kind of picking out your flaws, but really it's mostly in your own head.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what the explanation of it is. But I found, like, once I started talking about it and once I discovered the term for it, I realized, well, if there's a term for this, there's obviously help for this.
Yeah.
And then once I started sharing my story, I had so many people contact me. It was like, you realize straight away you're not alone.
Definitely.
You're never alone.
No.
There's always a community out there. There's always people, whether it's your inner circle or people just, you know, stranger kind of reaching out to you. You're never alone. And that's what I found. I was like, why did I stay quiet for so long?
Yeah.
Why did I, like, because the support I had from people around me, like, kind of just was incredible.
Yeah,
you know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it's just realizing that kind of having this experience for me as well, I never ever thought I would have put my story out there, being such a private person, but it has given me a bit of empowerment and freedom, you know, talking to so many people, getting to know so many people, that I would never take this experience back. It's been a journey, and it's been something that I know that I will use for years and years after. Hopefully I'll get treatment, and it's been an empowering thing, and I think everyone should be open and just honest, you know, and we're all human and we all struggle, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Darragh? Have you found any kind of, have you self-stigmatized at all with, like, when speaking about, like, anxiety or anything?
Yeah, like, so I think obviously I've had different experiences to you guys, but my main thing when I was struggling with depression was I couldn't feel any emotions, and I had to fake a lot of emotion, because, like, so I couldn't feel joy, but I knew some people would expect joy if certain things happened. So if I got, like, good results in a test or something, everyone would be like, oh, you delighted with that? And I'm like, not feeling anything, but I'd have to act out the emotion, like, oh yeah, I'm delighted, that's so great, and then just not feel anything. And I think it's not the full factor, but stigma does play a role in that, and especially for men, because, like, I went to an all boys school, and the idea of being in touch with your emotions as a teenage boy when I was growing up was like, it was just not done. Like, as in, I'm a poet, so I write a lot of poetry. If I had said that when I was in secondary school, I would have been bullied for it, and it would have been a big issue. So I think you're kind of conditioned to, as a man, to, if you feel emotion, don't express it. And then when I got depressed, that was a lot of the issue, is because I was like, oh, well, I feel this way, but I can't tell people I feel sad all the time, or I can't tell people I feel low because I'm a man and I'm not meant to do that. And that's like a very societal issue, because it wasn't ever like, no one ever explicitly told me don't feel emotion, but it was like a culture of, you know, why are you crying? You're not supposed to cry, you're a boy, like stuff like that. And that definitely challenging. And then the self-stigma came in when I knew I had a problem and I couldn't tell people because I was afraid of what they would think. And I remember like very specifically being terrified to tell my parents that I wanted to go to therapy, because I was stigmatizing myself so much that I thought they would think less of me. So it was like the last thing I wanted to do was tell them. And then when I told them, they were like the most supportive, as they've always been. Like, my parents have always been great, but like I had stigmatized myself so much that I like had built up this idea that they were going to like think less of me. And you know, that was really, really challenging. And it's kind of hard to not self-stigmatize. Like, it's hard to know what to do to prevent self-stigma, especially like back then. That was 7 years ago, when like mental health wasn't really being talked about. Like now, today, like things like this happen, and there's podcasts like yours, and there's pages, and Niall Breslin talks openly, and it becomes more normal now to be like, oh, I do have emotions and I'm allowed to feel them.
Yes.
That's new, you know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I think that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Lizzy?
Oh, for me, yeah, I suppose, as I mentioned there, I went down the route of addiction, of binge drinking to soothe my anxiety. So I'd be so nervous, I'd get my confidence from the drink. And because I didn't drink every day, because it was binge drinking, I didn't think I had a problem. And it wasn't really till my brother, who had mental health problems and he died by suicide, it wasn't until he died and I really tried to stop drinking because my anxiety was off the scale, then with the grief on top, that I realised that I couldn't. That was very hard for me to stop. So when you have a drink problem, the level of denial is always high. And then I just didn't want to have a drink problem because I was so afraid what other people would think of me. So eventually I went and I got help, and I came out the other side of it, thank God, and I'm in recovery now. But it took me until last year actually coming down here to go on the 2 Norries to speak about it publicly, because I was still so afraid of people judging me because I had a drink problem in the past. It took me a long time to come around that, whereas I'd be the first one to say live and let live and don't judge other people, but it can be hard to do that for yourself. So I think I stigmatise myself more than anything, because I wrote about it in my book as well, and the response that I've gotten from anyone, friends, family, professionals, people I don't know, has only been kind and good and encouraging, and people saying that they identify, and people saying, oh yeah, like I don't drink every day either, you know, or yes, the high anxiety, or living life, you know, after addiction and the tools that you need and things like that. So yeah, I do think there probably still is stigma around it. But I think there's a lot more understanding these days that it's a disease, it's a problem, it's an allergy of the body and the mind that people have. It's not something that people would choose if they were well. So that stigma, I think, has been broken by, like I said, people like Keith having loads of people on the podcast and people speaking out. But the main, the very long answer is I stigmatise myself, but I don't anymore, you know, so.
Yeah. And what about having a good support structure around you? Because obviously, as you know, as I've mentioned, I stayed quiet for a long time, and then once I actually opened up, I realised there's so many people around me, incredible, amazing people around me, who are so supportive, and you realise then, like, why have you been quiet for so long? But what about you guys? Like, so would you have a good support structure around you, and how important is it to have a good support structure around you? We'll start with you, Emma.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's been like family has been an amazing support structure. But there is also a point that, you know, you kind of need something more than that, I suppose. I suppose family can only understand to a certain point, and that's when reaching out to others, I suppose, going through similar things is the kind of thing that really helps, because they're like, yeah, I'm going through the same thing, and you can resonate with those people, you know? So I think it's having support from a couple of different areas that you can rely on, and then kind of drawing from those when you need them at certain times, you know? And definitely building up that support system, because I think you'll come across people who you'll tell your story to, and, you know, you might lose people or gain people, but just to kind of be your real self, you'll kind of notice the right people will come and will support you. And even online, finding communities of people that go through the same thing. If you don't have a support system in your family or through friends, it can be something really empowering as well. Because there is a lot of support out there online and even through groups. And so yeah, I think that's really important to have supports from a couple of different places that you can kind of grasp onto when you need to at different times.
Yeah, exactly, because it doesn't always have to be your inner circle. I mean, there are support groups out there as well.
Yeah.
I actually found, which was strange, because I found an amazing community on Instagram, which is, I've been asked to speak a lot of times about kind of the pros and cons of social media.
Yeah.
Like for me, like obviously the con, like with social media, is it can be quite toxic at times, but if you use your filters and you kind of get rid of the stuff off your social media that's a negative impact on you. That's what I did. It can actually be an amazing place, because there are pages out there that will offer advice and help every single day. And what I found with my podcast is that I've kind of I've been involved in a great community.
Yeah.
I'm still in contact with most people. Like you've both been on my podcast. You're going to be on it soon.
Yeah.
And that's what I get from it.
Definitely.
It's the relationships you build from it. So
Yes.
so if you have an issue, you can reach out to someone and vice versa, you know. But like that's what I found anyway. So yeah.
Definitely creating a community around you, I think, is such an empowering thing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think the key thing is, I think the key difference has been, because I've always been very privileged to have a very supportive family, and there's never been any question of them being there for me. But there is a difference between having people who support it and not really understanding, and people resonating with it and totally getting it. And I think that's where the community, like for example, like I've met all of you on Instagram. You know, you find people through talking about what you're going through. And I think, despite having like friends and family who support me, like a really good example of this, and this isn't meant to help, but like a lot of my friends buy my poetry and just don't understand poetry at all. Like they don't get it at all. But they're like, yeah, we'll get it because we support you. So, but then there's other people who like genuinely get it. And that's kind of the metaphor where it's like, it becomes more of I can actually talk to you to the minutiae of detail of what I'm going through because you've been through this. Whereas like, it's kind of hard to talk about like, oh, some days I wake up and think everyone hates me if that doesn't happen to you. So I think that's where the key support has been, that like finding those individuals and those groups that like very much get what you're going through has been really like powerful, and just allows you to like not feel so self-conscious about talking about it and judging yourself. Like, should I be talking about this? When you have that community who completely get it, it doesn't even come across my mind anymore. Like, should I post about anxiety today on Twitter? I don't even think about it. I'm like, yeah, because it'll help someone.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that thing of, not feeling like, because I felt for so long, if I would speak to someone, I'd feel like I'm burdening them, I'm putting a burden on someone else. But if you find the right people, it's not like that, you know? It's more of an empowering situation and having kind of that balance of we can talk to each other, you know what I mean? And I think that's a really important thing to kind of like remind yourself that talking to people isn't burdening people. It's just having an understanding, you know? Yeah.
What about you?
For me, if I had something major going on or something crops up, I will dip in and out of professional help, like go to some counselling, talk it out in a safe place. I have my friends, a bit like what Keith said there about social media, filtering out what's not good for you. I've done that in real life as well. Like people place some things that are positive for me and good for me and will identify with me. That's where I go. I stay away from negativity. I'm a sensitive person and it's just not good for me. So yeah, friends really, and other people who are in recovery and, you know, trying to live a healthy, good life. That would be my support network, yeah.
You made a good point there about filtering out the people, like not necessarily on social media, but filtering out the people in your life that aren't good for you. I think that's very important as well. Before we go, actually, I don't know, I'm not sure how we're doing for time, but we will. Yeah, okay. So if anyone has any questions at the end, if you know, we'll give up a few minutes. But I want to throw a spanner in the works here because we didn't mention this topic, but we've both all nearly mentioned it just a few minutes ago. So I want to briefly talk about social media because it can get quite a bad name as well, and there are different platforms, and you know, we've all been kind of subject when you speak out about mental health. But I kind of want to get your guys' impressions of kind of how you deal with social media.
Yeah, so surprisingly for me, actually, I do filter out things like body image-wise that I just would kind of not want to see, you know? But going through this social media has actually been such a savior for me because I've met so many people like you guys and just people that are reaching out to me that I'll be having like a really hard morning, a really hard day, and I'll just get a message from someone I don't know telling me their story and how they are, and it'll just like kind of transform that, you know? So for me, social media has been such a major importance in this whole thing. And it does get a bad name, and I think there are parts of social media that, you know, it needs to be kind of filtered out, but for me it's been an important positive aspect of what I'm going through, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Darragh, what about you? Because I know you've been posting a good bit on Twitter lately with your poems and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think you've both touched on it. Social media is neither bad nor good. It's how you use it.
Yeah.
And there's been times in my life where it's been a source of like very negative anxiety. And there's times in my life that, and I still like, so I use social media a lot for the blog. So it's kind of like, and sometimes it feels strange because I'm like using social media to alert people to the pitfalls of social media, and it's a very like closed loop and it feels a bit hypocritical, but it can be very good, and it has been very good, especially as a writer. It's almost essential because you get different opportunities from social media. But I think becoming aware of when and how you use social media. So like, again, during lockdowns, I realized that the more I was tweeting per day was directly correlated to how anxious I was feeling. Yeah. So the more I'm posting and looking for validation, looking for people to, you know, give me serotonin via the internet, I was like, okay, this means I'm not in a very good place mentally. Yeah. And I think becoming aware of when you use social media for those reasons is very important, because then it doesn't become a toxic relationship. Because for me, at times, it has become a toxic relationship. And that's also something that's not really like nice to admit about yourself, but if you want to get past it, you have to acknowledge that that's its presence. So that's why I do things like I'll take social media breaks, I'll delete certain apps off my phone. But in the complete opposite direction, like I've found such like fulfilling friendships and relationships and resources and communities using social media. So it can be very, very good, and that's why I say it's neither good nor bad. It's how you use it. Yeah. And when you use it well, it's like nothing else.
Yeah,
definitely.
You, Lizzy?
For me, it's the same really as what you guys have said. You know, I just engage with the positive. I don't engage with anything negative. I haven't had any negativity come my way, touch wood, thank God. I found it really good. I launched I didn't. I have a launch for my book because it came out during the lockdown. So it was all through social media, and it was invaluable to me for, you know, getting opportunities to tell people about my work and about my writing, and to meet like-minded people, to meet people who want to learn more, for me to learn more. So I found it really good. But yeah, I do see those threads where people, you know, aren't well or they're negative or whatever, and I don't engage. And digital detox once a month for me is very important. I have to have a chunk at least once a month for a whole day, 24 hours. I don't always last, I'll be honest. But I at least try to just not go near any of my social media or my phone at all, because my head gets very busy and then I get overwhelmed. So if I just back away once a month for a while, then all is well.
Okay. So I think we're nearly there. Again, I want to give Emma a huge round of applause for pulling this all together today. It's actually amazing. Yeah, and again, we have a hashtag. Well, Emma has a hashtag. We don't. Emma has a hashtag called Change with Emma. So if you want to share that on social media today, please do use that. Is it on the screen? It's on the screen. There we go. It's on the screen.
Do you want us to do any reading or
I don't. Do you
at
want
a
to?
time?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you want to do your poem?
Yeah, I can
read
read
a
a poem.
poem?
If you
Yeah,
want.
do read a poem,
Okay.
Darragh,
Darragh
for
has
sure.
a poem.
Lizzy insisted that I read this poem, so I will read this poem.
This is a lovely poem.
Yeah.
By
So,
Darragh.
If I can find it. Sorry, my notebook is. What did we call it again? I should have been more prepared for this.
Should I start filling some?
Okay,
dead
here
air
we
there?
go. I found it. So this is called Anxious Knees, as we decided on Instagram yesterday. Okay. Restless like anxious knees bouncing beneath tables. The type of thing only those who have anxious knees understand. I tell myself that if I do something productive, I'll feel better. And this is sometimes true, but often it just adds to an ever-growing list of things I need to finish. I don't wave at magpies, but I do mentally acknowledge their presence, so I guess you could say I'm a little bit stitious. I used to have a recurring nightmare of the apocalypse, but the dream stopped, which makes me think that the world has already ended and the dream was just something I struggled to forget. Anyone who claims to understand Nietzsche is a liar, and nobody goes through anything alone, despite how it might feel. Thank you.
Oh my God.
I'm literally just going to read 2 lines from my novel, The Lotus and the Tiger. It's fiction based on true events. So it's just about 3 lines long. Dying was not an option. Living as a hostage while going crazy was not an option either. No one was going to save me. I had to save myself. It was me or him. I had to choose me.
Okay. If anyone has any, have we time for a few questions? If anyone has any, yeah. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we can. No, all quiet. All gone too shy. Okay. Well, listen, guys. Thanks very much for listening to us,
Yeah,
and hopefully,
definitely.
keep the conversation talking about mental health awareness. And yeah, thanks very much, guys. Enjoyed that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Do you want to share anything before we go?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming. It just means really, really a lot. I never thought I would have to do anything like this, or would ever do anything like this. But yeah, I just want to thank Damien here at the Black Market and Callum, if he's around, for hosting us here. They've been absolutely amazing. Yeah, everyone who has helped and all my family. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day and the raffle and everything else. But it just means so much to me for every single one of you for coming. So Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. So, yeah.